I came here with $1,000, and I was like, this will get me through. I also had no concept of California. I had no California to me was like a place in a rap song. Like that's how I knew of California. I knew LA, and that's all I knew. I never heard of San Diego. So coming here was a culture shock. Like it broke me. Oh yeah, I had some hard days of like when Horton Plaza was over there. I remember one day I'm sitting there with my notebook and looking at the cost of living and like what I have, and I just broke down, like crying, like this is gonna be so hard. But I will say, in that same moment, I was like, but this is worth it, and I'll figure it out, and I'll get it done. So Gil let me sleep on his couch, I think, for the first month. Um, and then I got a place over here in a place that was like $550 a month. And then I got a job from the guys next door at the airport and just rolled. And it just kind of went. And I was, like I said, at the airport and then here every day, back and forth. And I had like one day off. I had one day off here and I had weekends off there. So it was this kind of weird on and off thing of like terrible sleep schedule, like the worst. Like, gee, it's just terrible. But I survived. And I don't know. I think I don't know if anyone. I don't know. Apprenticeships nowadays are different for everyone. I don't know if anyone. I don't know that everyone needs to suffer through their apprenticeships, but I do feel that I asked for that. Like I wanted a traditional, challenging apprenticeship. I wanted it to be what it was, and I got everything I asked for.
Back with the fixed audio.
So,
But yeah, so Gil was what about it inspired you so much?
about the shop.
Well, what Gil did to really keep this place going? Because I talked to a few other tattooers,
Yeah.
and this place has such a bigger name than even my small, smooth brain could comprehend. And I was like, whoa, like all these people were like, oh, tell Al I said hi. Just people out of nowhere that was like, oh, that's so cool. I remember guest spotting at that place in like 84 and et cetera. So, because I'm in that Facebook group for the tattoo shop talk.
Yeah.
I don't know if you're part of it.
I'm not. I'm not. I'm completely away from social media right now, and I exist on there, but I'm not actively involved. So, but I'll be back next month.
That's okay. Yeah. Well, if you ever want the link, I'll share it to you. But of the people I talked to, it was very wild what people thought. So, Gil, I mean, what was Gil's attitude about it? Like when pandemic hits, what's he doing? What are you doing?
The first idea was, of course, like so. If you take it by like March, everything shuts down. Okay, we're gonna be open in April. April, okay, we're gonna be open in May. And now it starts to get scary because it's like, oh, now we're missing 2 months of rent. This place is not cheap. How are we gonna keep it going? Gil had so many plans, but I felt like it was him. It was me, him, and Al who were here every day. We came in every day and we just hung out. And the ideas were selling art or making like Gil made so many tiki things. He created his entire line of his tiki business, his pins and all his Disney Flash and all of the things that he loves doing. He just trying to pump into his spare time, whether it was like drawing up designs and then showing like the animation style of like how, or not the animation, but the process of how he went from this to this. And he was doing a lot of transformations of like taking traditional pinups and then turning them into princesses or Disneyfied versions of them for his tattoos. And that gained interest. He was big on social media because you had to be. Like, there was nothing else. Everyone was online. And I think those kind of things is what kept it going. I would say the reality of it is like everyone was just kind of scared shitless most of the time. It's like, am I gonna die? One, um, if I die, what's gonna happen to this place? What is the best way to approach this? How do we stay safe? How do we get people to come in? Because there were a lot of people who actually were just ready to get tattooed, no matter what. They didn't care about about COVID. They were going to get tattooed, and that was cool. But it was also like we got to be like safe. We want to figure out how to make this accommodate for everyone. And so we stayed in line with all the rules. We did PPE and everything. We got our spacing and our stickers, which we still keep a sticker back there from that time period. But we tried our best to maintain what the shop needed, and it was just hard to tell. It was like a day by day thing. Like, what can we do? We can do this. We can try that. It's kind of a blur of a moment, but it was a day by day. Like, how can we keep this thing afloat? And so I think for Gil, the only thing you'd have to ask him, but I think he just kind of like dug in to his savings and to everything he had built up to make sure that the shop stayed alive. Which, I mean, he truly invested a lot of himself into it because this is his family shop. It's like it's a big thing for him. Seeing that for me made it only more that I loved being here. I'm like, okay, this is a real thing. It's not just a building. It's not just like, it's something more than I don't, well, I've only been in good tattoo shops, fortunately. I've never been in ones where people don't care about the place they work. So everyone treats it like a home. And I would say that's what this felt like. It felt like he was trying to save his home that his family worked at and lived at. And he was doing everything in his power to make sure that it stayed afloat.
Beautiful, yeah. Yeah, you're lucky. You're lucky because not every shop, I mean, even if not every shop is the same. Not some shops, they're just not really built like a family, or there's a lot of predatoriness from either like the shop owner working the artists, or the artists are doing drugs and whatnot, and or just being shady in general. I mean, I don't care what anyone does outside of it personally, but as long as it doesn't affect what the yeah.
I would say that's a big strong thing about this shop is everyone knew how to manage what was going on, like in here. And here we were a team and we're a unit, and we work around it. If we have problems, they're handled really well. They're kind of like, we talk about them, or we handle them in the moment, and we're all pretty easygoing, so it's not hard to have a conversation. Um, and it's made it so that as conflicts come up or problems come up, we just kind of put our heads together and can make things happen.
What was it like coming out?
Coming to San Diego?
No, I mean coming out of the pandemic.
Oh, coming out of the pandemic? Insane. Yeah, so super busy. Like the busiest. Oh, insane.
Oh, yeah. I remember. Well, it was the same for me, but I imagine for you guys it was probably.
It was insane. We went from doing like 1 to 2. Like Phil was probably he was the most consistent with tattooing while it was going on. But when Buddy came back, that was it. Like I was breaking down Buddy's station. Buddy and Phil are both fast. So you got 2 fast tattooers cranking out tattoos all day. It was insane. I almost couldn't keep up. Yes, both trad artists, so small designs, but doable designs within an hour, just one and done. And then once the LA crowd came down, once San Diego opened, because there was a moment where San Diego opened up and LA was still closed, and that brought so many people here. Like so many people, and it was insane. We were sloshed busy. And that was it. We only had those 2. Al was here too, but he was doing mostly his appointments. So if you just imagine, you basically had one walk-in artist for an entire shop for a city of people who just needed to get tattooed. It was insane. I loved it because it felt real again. It felt like we were back at tattooing, and we're just knocking them out. I spent a lot of that time really just watching and learning, because it's like, well, this is my apprenticeship. So this is how I kind of have to take it as it comes. Like you were saying about being resourceful. It's like, if this is all I have, then I have these 2 people to look at, study under, look at how they're doing things, ask questions. That was another thing about the pandemic. I got to ask questions about machines and things that wouldn't normally, I don't know if you have time for in your apprenticeship, but we had so much time. It was like, let's look at machines and let's look at needles and learn about different sizes and gauges and how things work and why things work the way they do.
Yeah. No, I didn't really have a mentor. I mean, I don't want to say anything bad, but I think I had more appetite than the ability to transfer the knowledge, because not everyone mixes well. Some people are like oil and water, and it was okay for a while, but it was later after I had left that I was working with a guy who built machines, and that's where I learned a lot of, on top of studying on my own. So, but it's fortunate. It's really fortunate that I wish I had that. I mean, that's why I bring it up. I wish I had that. I mean, I eventually got it, but just I was taking about my machines as an apprentice and putting them back together and having more parts than I started with.
Yeah.
Like, well, where did these come from? And I didn't really have anybody. I had 2 apprenticeships. I had one apprenticeship that was very short, very, very short, like a couple months. But it was this guy told me he was an artist, but he was working out of his garage. To his credit, he did eventually open up a shop, but he was more of a hustler, and he just knew how to do the tattoos, didn't really know how to teach it. I think he was just he was really good for the amount of time that he was doing it, but I think he was just doing it for a couple of years, and then being able to transfer that's not enough time to have a lot of wisdom into there. And then I got an apprenticeship in a shop, and like I said, that's just its own bag of worms. But for me, it was more about the art and pumping out the drawings in my apprenticeship. So, and it's nice to have. Oh, Sticker Mule, man.
That's my stickers.
Man, they must have so many chops.
Dude, I got
Sticker
on him
Mule?
because of this guy, because of Jojo. Jojo Ackerman has like he brought up Sticker Mule to me, and he was like, "But they send you hot sauce." And I don't know why the hot sauce thing is stuck with me, but I'm down. I love their hot sauce, and
Oh, really?
they're my go-to company. I don't order stickers from anywhere else. Like,
Yeah, same.
yeah. I just got. I think those are probably the same. It's the reprint of these like wolf ones, but I ordered those. They're like $60 something, 50 of them, and then the next day they were like, "Hey, here's another 50 for $9," and I was just like,
Oh, their deals are the
"Dude,
best.
love
dude.
this place. I'm just gonna get another one and more hot sauce probably." Now they're sending like little packets of hot sauce.
They don't care. They let you order one, but they're always pumping them out like once a week. It's like a new deal. It's like, man, I'm
in.
I'm
Yeah.
in.
I love making stickers and I like having them. I put them all over everything. So I used to not like love designing them, but now I'm like I'm on a kick.
Oh yeah.
And I'm like, all right, if I can make a sticker a week, when the deal pops, I'll just print the sticker, and then that way I'm just into stickers.
I love making them. I absolutely. I started doing graphic design in college, and I didn't really graduate, but I went with it. I was like, man, I don't need you guys. And I just was so. I'm a big self-learner. I'm not academically inclined.
No, I'm the same. I did school. I did art school for 2 years. I tried for 2 years, and it was the structure that broke me. It was just too do this, do this, do this, do that. I needed the freedom of like a day where you just draw whatever you want to draw and make whatever you want to make. So
Well, I think it goes along with me, like for me myself. You can tell me how you feel about it, but for me, I am a terrible employee, but I'm great when I'm working for myself. There isn't anybody on this planet who could work harder than me if it's
for you.
all on me.
yeah,
Like
yeah.
I was never the most talented, and I was never the most gifted, and I didn't have the best start. But everyone's got 24 hours in a day, and I was just like, I'll just work longer and harder than everyone else.
I agree. Very studious for my own craft, basically. Which is why I think I fell into tattooing. Like, it made sense. It was like, oh, like, when I was getting started, I felt like there was maybe a way to do it. And then I found out there wasn't a way. Like, there is no way. You just do what works best for you. And that made more sense to me. It's like you find your way in tattooing to make it fit your life. And that's enjoyable, because if you are like a go-getter or someone who has that mentality of like I'm just like you. I came in, didn't really know how to draw. I drew, but not to the level of the people around me. And I painted at the level below everyone around me. And I was like, well, but I can control how many, like you said, you control how many hours in your day you actually do the craft. And the more time you put in, the better it got. And I was like, oh, well, this is like directly proportional. My tattoos look better if I draw more. If I tattoo more, they look better. If I invest time into it, it actually has a return that's tangible. Like the next day, you're like, oh man, that actually was beneficial to put time in. I love this.
Absolutely, yeah, yeah. You did. You said you did 2 apprenticeships.
Basically, yeah.
You did it. So you're from
Technically three, but yeah.
technically 3.
I started. So my start was 2018. Um, I think that's 2018 is when I started. I opened up my Instagram and I was like, I'm gonna draw every day and I'll post every day and that'll be the thing to get me into art again. And so I just started drawing and posting, and then I ended up at a shop in Leavenworth, Kansas, that was um, owned by this guy, and it was kind of like a biker shop, that kind of style of biker shop. He did black and gray, and he had an apprentice who had already graduated named Diana, and Diana was my first, like, I would say mentor. She kind of like took me under, but it wasn't. It was like a start. It was like, hey, you should start drawing flash and do this. And so she started teaching me, and that shop just didn't work out. The environment wasn't me. It's like I didn't fit it really well, and I ended up walking away from that. And then, but Diana and I remained friends. That is, if you if you ever need a shout out, that is one of the best. Is one of the best tattoo artists I think in Kansas. She's incredible. She's truly a golden person. But she got me started, and she kind of gave me the end to realize like there's good people in the tattooing industry. Not everyone's gonna step on you. And I tried. I went to lots of shops and talked to people. I got a lot of no's, a lot of rejections, a lot of like we don't take apprentices, which was, now looking back, I didn't realize how much of a hustle it was to try to just get into this industry.
Yeah.
It's a lot of driving around and just, well, you look at mine, no, okay. So then my second shop I got into wasn't until I'd been going to conventions for a while, but I was going to conventions following this one lady, Amy Shandick, 2 conventions. Like she showed up in Kansas City, I'd show up, and then she'd show up in Denver, and I'd show up, and I would just hang out at her booth and just bother her. And she's like, "Yeah, you can sit in," and so she let me sit in, and that's how I met Gil eventually. But the meeting of Gil and me working for Gil was a whole year later. It took me. I went through a whole nother apprenticeship in another shop, and then that fell out. And then Gil called me like within the same. It was like the same day. It was really crazy. I I remember walking away from that apprenticeship like, man, I another like year gone of like my life, and I failed. And then I'm driving home all sad, and Gil called and he's like, hey, we have a position open at Masters if you want to come out. I was like, okay, sure. And so that started my third level of apprenticeships.
Wow.
So it was.
And that's the one that stuck.
That's the one that stuck. Well, I think because I moved, I think because I put myself out here with like no money and no way of going back really. And I was like, all right, we're gonna make this work. Like, I want to do this. So.
So are you? Did you as well come with like a couple $100 in your pocket and a dream in your heart?
Absolutely. I lived, so in Kansas. I had a 3-bedroom apartment for $700, which was amazing. I lived there by myself. It was the apartments I actually like grew up in when I was younger, because I grew up in different parts of Kansas. So it was like I went back to the same apartments, and I was there. I was one floor above the apartment I grew up in, which is also crazy, but $700, 3-bedroom. It was awesome.
Yeah.
I was like, this is the best. I got the best life ever. And then that apprenticeship fell out, and I came here with $1,000, and I was like, this will get me through. I also had no concept of California. California to me was like a place in a rap song. Like, that's how I knew of California. I knew LA, and that's all I knew. I never heard of San Diego. So coming here was a culture shock. Like, it broke me. Oh yeah, I had some hard days of like when Horton Plaza was over there. I remember one day I'm sitting there with my notebook and looking at the cost of living and like what I have, and I just broke down, like crying, like this is gonna be so hard. But I will say in that same moment, I was like, but this is worth it, and I'll figure it out, and I'll get it done. So Gil let me sleep on his couch, I think, for the first month. And then I got a place over here in a place that was like $550 a month. And then I got a job from the guys next door at the airport, and just rolled. And it just kind of went. And I was, like I said, at the airport and then here every day, back and forth. And I had like one day off. I had one day off here, and I had weekends off there. So it was this kind of weird on and off thing of like terrible sleep schedule, like the worst. Like, gee, it's just terrible. But I survived, and I don't know. I think I don't know if anyone. I don't know. Apprenticeships nowadays are different for everyone. I don't know if anyone. I don't know that everyone needs to suffer through their apprenticeships, but I do feel that I asked for that. Like I wanted a traditional, challenging apprenticeship. I wanted it to be what it was, and I got everything I asked for.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I don't think anybody, at least from the sounds of it, no one made you suffer just for the sake of suffering. You definitely you earned it.
That's what I would say. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I wanted that. I really I valued that idea. Like reading through old tattoo books is kind of like I'll tell you a funny story. So my back in 2018, I found my old sketchbooks, and when I went to go visit my mom recently or last year, I found my old sketchbooks, and in the one of the sketchbooks, like when I started drawing every day, the goal was to become a master tattooer, and with no concept of what that was or what that really meant. And then I started with like, okay, well, I got to learn tattoo history. So I'd like read books and write notes about tattooing, and everything I learned was from like the what are those books? Toshin or something. They're like the square books. They're square little tattoo books that just have like old tattoo flash, and they tell you the history of tattooing through the ages.
Yeah, the name escapes me, but Chad's got a bunch of those.
Yeah,
like
those,
at the shop. I've seen them.
that's
They're
where I
very
started.
Cool.
They're cool books, yeah, but they made me think that that's what tattooing was because I only had Ink Master and the books, so that's all I had for a reference. And those books kind of like framed what I thought you had to do to become a tattooer. So I just approached it that way. I approached it with like it's gonna be challenging. You're gonna get a lot of no's. You're gonna have to work at a shop. You're gonna have to mop, sweep, clean, and work your way up. And for the more I got into it and the deeper it went, the more I loved it and I valued it. So then getting here at Master Tattoo with all this old flash, it sealed the deal. It was like I know this is where I want to be. This is worth doing, and I'm very happy I did it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's almost like for me the no's. I too got a lot of no's, like a lot of rejection, and it just made me go harder.
Yeah, it drives you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because in like every other aspect of the world is trying to funnel you. They're like, yeah, go to college and we'll figure it all out for you, and go to the trade school and figure it all out for you. But tattooing really stood out to me personally because it there was none of that. No one was trying to like put you into a funnel and stick you on a conveyor belt and send you through. Like it was like why is this so guarded off? Why can't I figure this out? Then I went harder and harder, and every time someone told me no, I'd go harder. So
There's something about the locked door method. Like, you're right. The rest of life is pretty easy. You can walk into it, and people willingly pull you into it. Like, I've had enough jobs to know that like every job I've applied for, I think I've gotten. Like, there's very few
Yeah,
jobs I've
same.
just yeah. It's like there's very few jobs where they're like, oh man, that was so hard, and like I had to challenge. Like, no, this was the only job where just trying to get information about the job was hard. It was like, what is this thing? Why is it so like guarded and kept? And
so much, yeah. That
Yeah.
was it. Really stood out to me in that aspect, and the challenge really. I think if I were to, I mean, tell me if you feel the same. But if it was just given to me, like if I showed up first day and they just threw me an apron and laid it all out, I personally wouldn't have valued it.
I probably would have quit, honestly, because it
Yeah.
just wouldn't have had the pull that it has. Like tattooing has a weird life pull. Like it's not a job. Like jobs are jobs. You go to them, you work them, you go home, and you do your life. Tattooing becomes your life, and you can't really separate
God.
it. And if you try, it stops working almost. Like it's like the minute you start to like try to make tattooing a thing you do on the side, you can't. I don't feel right. Like I feel off, and I feel like this is no longer a part of me.
Yes, I agree because you it's very hard to put it on the side or put it on the back burner. You could take a break and come back to it, but it there's so much to do in it. I feel like that well here when I tell other people about like apprentices and stuff, I'm like, look, the more you put into it equals the more you put out. If you give 105,000% at Starbucks or whatever or this or that, your output's going to be the same no matter what. But in this one, for me, when I learned that, I was like, it made me triple, quadruple, five-tuple my effort because it's like next day results. You do it, and then it creates this, and then it's like, whoa, I can actually do more, and it will make more, and it's kind of a fun little lever, and then once that really sinks in, that life, it's done.
It's in.
Like the hooks
because
are.
there's no other job like that. Like, as far as I know,
No.
I've never done anything where your value is your worth. Like it's in your control. Like you don't. No one makes the money for you. No one pays you a salary or goes, this is how much you've done. It's like you get to do that. And then if you're into, like, I love people. So if you're into people and you like connecting with people, then you also realize that your ability to connect with people is also amplified. Like you get to meet more people the better you get at what you do. You get to have more interesting conversations. You get to have a more fulfilling life, I think, if you actually just put time into this magical thing that feeds it right back to you. And yeah, the traveling that you get to do, the worlds you get to see. I've been in places that I never thought I'd be in, and I just get to kind of stand there and be in awe of it.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
like, oh my God, I'm here. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally. That's, I mean, it's, I mean, so many good things from that. Like, you know, especially what you said so far. I mean, I feel very strong. I mean, I have my moments. Sometimes I'm like, God, I fucking hate this.
Yeah.
It's like a family member.
Yes.
Like when you're like, you love it, but then you just like, I just want to fucking throw you off a bridge.
Yes. Yeah. And I think you need that. I think people who make it seem like it's just all great, it's not. There are down days. There are bad days. There are days where you question why you ever got into this thing. Like, what
I've
was
almost
I
quit
thinking?
like 8, 9 times.
Yeah, of course. And I think
Being like, I'm done. I can't do it no more.
I think that is the realest relationship with it. It's a relationship. You choose it every day. And some days you choose it and you're like, why did I choose this? This thing sucks. But on your suckiest days, I guarantee something good will happen. And you'll be like, oh yeah, that's right. You know, it's like, especially here for us, you know, we've had, especially with like the pandemic and things after it. So everything ebbs and flows with tattooing. So those really bad days where you like, no one's come in, you've been drawing flash all day. It seems like it's just going to be dead for the next year because you haven't seen anyone's face. And then someone comes in and they want exactly what you've drawn. And it just lights your fire again. And you flow right back into it. So I've met a lot of older tattooers, and I think that's one of the best things about working here is talking to older tattooers. I kind of seek them out. I think I was raised by my grandmother partially, so I have a affinity for older people and knowledge and wisdom from older people, and I love hearing about that. Like just hearing about, oh yeah, there was this whole month where I thought no one was going to come in, and then the next month I was booked, and it's like, oh, that's normal, okay. And you kind of need that. You need someone to regulate what you think is normal, because once you hear like there might be an entire month of no tattoos, and then you'll be swamped the entire next month if you draw flash and paint and like stay up with it. Like don't give up just because you don't see anything. It's almost like mining for gold. It's like just keep digging. It's there.
A lot of archaeology
Yeah.
aspects to it.
Yeah, like just keep on going. You're gonna find it, but you can't stop when you don't see it because that's what it is. It's like a living thing. It's weird. Tattooing is the strangest thing, and that's probably why I'm so into it because I can't understand it. I still don't understand it. I just do it.
Yeah, that's one of the fascinating. That's one of the reasons I want to like try to get this stuff recorded and keep preserve the legacy of it because you could probably go to any time period and get a real, genuine, unique answer from somebody. That's why I told you that your info would be important too because. So I think someone's going to watch this. A lot of people, much like I'm into my conversation myself, you know, I'm 12 years, it's been 11, 12 years since I've been out of my apprenticeship, but I'm I'm participating. I'm like into it. I mean, I was like, yeah, totally, and and of course that's why I'm doing this. I don't think there's enough of that out there. I mean, how would you like if you could sum it up? What is tattooing for you? Like if you could just, for what's that is it that living thing? I mean, we were just talking about it being a language, and that's how. And I was like, wow, that's like, I mean, for me personally, it's like a challenge. Like I'm a very put your hand to the fire, suffer, shape yourself, stone tools kind of. That's what drew me in. But and then, what he was saying was it was like a language, and then I guess what would it be for you?
It's an interesting question.
What draws you in? What keeps you there?
I do a lot of so I do Tai Chi, every Wednesday, and my Tai Chi teacher is he's from China, so he's from China. He's the last of a lineage, so it's kind of
Wow.
it's kind of like masters, right? It's like
Yeah.
I'm drawn to that kind of world.
I love that. Yeah.
So a lot of the things we've done and we study is the Tao, which is just like Taoist philosophy, and the Tao is how I would describe tattooing. It's the same thing. It's a thing, and any words I try to define it with don't hit it. Like it doesn't matter. I could try, and I could, but every word I use takes away from what it actually is. So it's the connection with people. It's the ability to better yourself as a person, because in it, like you said, it's like the like who are you becoming as you become a tattooer? Like you become a better person. Your influence on other people, whether it's art or it's the conversations you have or it's the experience you give people, which is a huge thing with tattooing nowadays. I think people forget about the experience we're giving people and the experience we're receiving from the people we tattoo. Like it's a shared community thing. It's a community just in this booth, but then it's a community that circles around back to us as a shop, and then it's an even larger community of tattooers. It's all those things, and I have a hard time really defining it, but magic is the only word I ever have for tattooing. It's magical to me.
Yeah.
Like, I think on my Instagram I have like channeling magic at Master Tattoo, because that's what it feels like. I know a lot of tattooers talk about this. If you ever had the experience of doing a tattoo and then kind of stepping out of your body for a moment and realizing that it's happening more so than you're doing it, it's an experience that's you're almost engaging in something that's happening, and you're just along for the ride while it's happening. And it's cool to have those moments. It's not every tattoo. I promise, it's not every tattoo, but there are some that really give you that moment. And you're like, this is fascinating, and I think that's what draws me back in every time. It's like, what is this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Especially when you start a tattoo, you're like you have to finish it.
Yeah.
Or you have to get to a point where you can walk away, but you can't you can't just. It's not like a painting where you can like if you do a minute, walk away.
No.
Come back the next day or whatever. It's like you got to get it all going, and then it's like, okay, I gotta fire. I gotta do this and the setup ahead of time.
And it's emotionally a lot because you're committed. Like like you said, you can't stop. So you're like, I'm in. I've started the line. I'm in, and your problem solving and your like your whole mentality is around how can I get this done in an effective way that serves both parties, basically.
Yeah. I really like what you said about the emotional investment, because I feel like that's probably the most taxing aspect of it.
Yeah.
The emotional and the mental.
Yeah, I don't think clients know how many times we go home with that tattoo. Like, they live with it forever. But I promise you, 6 months down the road, I'm thinking about their tattoo.
Yeah, like, fuck.
Ah, man.
Damn it.
Why did I sneeze?
Yeah.
Why did that happen? Like, it took me a long time, and from, I would say maybe last year is when I finally started to, like, ease up on how critical I was about every tattoo, because I was very critical, trying to make them all perfect. And I realized it was unhealthy the way I was viewing it. It was like, this is unrealistic. Like, you've got to let yourself kind of fail forward and know that, like, all right, this one's not the best one, but the next one will be. And the next one's not the best one either, but the next one will be. And if you can live in that, your tattoos actually do get better. But if you live in the that one sucked or this was bad and this was bad every single day, it gets really toxic really quick.
Yes, yes, I think that too. You,
I had from my own apprenticeship, I realized something that I told Chris since he's been apprenticing is when you get finished with your tattoos, obviously you know what's wrong with them because you know what's wrong with them while you're doing them. But look at them and just give me 5 things you like about it, and also have that in your head too. So you're not just belittling yourself, but realizing like, oh, these my lines were one pass, or my shading actually came out smooth this time, or the positioning on the body was good, or the way I did that one thing actually was a good thing to do, and I should probably do that next time. And it's it's those I feel like there's the positive whole like positive what is it called, positive mental attitude side of tattooing. I found that during the pandemic, so that's another thing from the pandemic that was great was podcasts from other tattooers. uh, that whole mentality of like, hey, you don't have to be a depressed mad tattooer, you can be happy and do a really good job and be proud of the things you're doing. That has been something I've tried to pass on to other newer tattooers. It's like you can enjoy this and you should. It's really fun. Don't miss out on the fun, but also try your best every day. Yeah.
yeah, it's definitely the ideal 1% better every day type of profession. What do you think it's like for your client's perspective? Do you ever ponder, their experience of of when they come and get a tattoo and stuff?
Yes, I try to get tattooed as often as I can to not forget that I'm
Oh
tattooing
yeah.
people. Yeah,
Wow.
when I've gone too long not getting a tattoo.
Oh yeah, you're covered.
Yeah. There's videos of me from like when I met you, probably. My
Get a
arms probably
few.
weren't. I had a few, but I don't think I had any on my arms because the
Yeah, I don't
constant
think
thing I
so.
got was, "Do you work here?" And it was like pissing me off. It was like, "Yeah, do you work here? Can you get me a tattooer?" And I was like, I'm here. Like, what do you mean? Like, I'm literally here." And they're like, "Oh, weird." And they'd look at me, and I'm like, "All right, fine. I gotta like look the part." So I started getting tattooed more, and yeah, every time I get tattooed, I kind of remember instantly. I'm like, "Oh, okay, that's what I'm doing to people. This hurts. This sucks." All these really tender spots too. I'm really more conscientious about it. It's like, and I tell people from the start, this is gonna suck. I'm gonna get through it as fast as I can. If you need breaks, if you need anything, speak to me because I know what it's like to be laying there and think like, oh, I don't want to be a wimp or I don't want to say anything. It's like this sucks. I know it sucks. Let's work through this and figure it out together. And I yeah, I take my clients' experience very seriously. I want them to have a good time. I want them to leave either with that was great, or at least that was great, but also I should go back and get another one of those. That was so great. Sometimes I knock it out of the park. Sometimes it's like a 5 minute tattoo, and it's really hard to connect with people in 5 minutes. But at least make them feel comfortable and safe enough that like this is a good place to get tattooed.
I agree. I agree. It is the shorter ones are harder. The longer ones, you definitely have the time, or you can warm yourself into it.
Right, yeah. When you have a small lettering tattoo and you're trying to make a connection, it's challenging. But if you just take the time to be interested in other people, you will inevitably make a great tattoo and a great experience. And something from Gil that's always been true is that people remember their experience far more than they do the tattoo. It's it's nice to do a really nice tattoo, but I have really nice tattoos from people who like didn't talk to me the entire time, and I don't really think about those. And then the tattoos from people who like so for a San Diego tattoo, I have a tattoo from Philip Buchanan who talked to me the entire time, so much so that when the tattoo was done, I was sad. I was like, please tell me more stories. Like this was so fun, and that was the end of the tattoo. And that's what I would like to give my clients, is that same kind of feeling of like, wow, it's over. Oh man, I have to come back because I want to hang out. Just hang out. Just spend time in that atmosphere again.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, just that whole thing. What you said is so valuable. That just for me personally has been the hardest struggle because not every day you're feeling it. I feel like me
Yeah.
less than more
Yeah.
people, and But you know, it's there's another saying that says they won't always remember what you say or how you look or all that stuff, but they'll always remember how you made them feel. And I'm just like, God, I wish I never heard that so I can stay in ignorance.
Right.
So there's gonna be someone out there who's gonna hear that, and they're gonna be like, God, I wish I didn't hear that so I could just stay in my ignorance. Damn it, Q. Damn it. Well, what are your, it seems to me a lot of people who really care about the craft, share that. That's one of the things I'm noticing that's really common is that a lot of the greatest, most well-known, most respected people share that same attitude that you're sharing me. That this client experience, that they're so honored and they treat them with the utmost respect. What are some of the major people that you follow, or I mean, who are people that you idolize? Like, who do you want to model yourself to be?
So I describe this as like there are certain people I've met in the industry who have what I would describe as like an aura almost. It's like they have a presence when you meet them, and I've always been interested in what that is. I don't know what it is, but the first person that did that for me was Junie at Diamond Club Tattoo. Uh, Bill Salmon's wife, Junie Diamond. She's
Okay.
Junie Salmon. Diamond Club. I went there in 2022 for the first time, and it was in a little office building, and it was like a medical building, and the door just had Diamond Club on it, and you walk in and you're transported into a tattoo shop like this, and it was like walking into a magical room. But talking to her, I knew I was talking to someone who had lived tattooing. Like she carried it with her as a being. Like she said very few words, and we like it was. She told me about Bill and about her life in tattooing and how she got into it. But there was something about being her presence that I was like, oh my god. Like one, I want to get tattooed by you, but two, what is this that you're doing? Like how do you have this energy about yourself that is so calming and so um, just so whatever tattooing is. Sorry, like I don't know how to say it, but that's what that was one.
That Tao tattooing.
Yeah, it's just like she
that
had
ism.
it. Yeah, she had it, and everyone who worked there had it, and it was like, oh, this is crazy. And then I started picking up on that as I go into other shops. So she was definitely one of the first people who kind of like set that tone. I think I would say JoJo. JoJo did my back. JoJo was one of those people who like I never thought I'd get tattooed by, just because it was like never. Like
He's from my hometown because I was born in Lancaster.
Lancaster. Yeah. Okay.
And they had Psycho City there. I don't know if he's from there, but he worked at Psycho City for like he was big. He's the name.
He is the name of Lancaster.
Or it was JoJo.
Yes.
And all the other shops started popping up and whatever. But no matter what,
you know that guy.
That was the shop. If you got tattooed, they're like, oh, Psycho City.
Psycho City.
JoJo or Mike Pike.
Yeah.
That was like, it just.
And then, so Pappy worked here, and when Pappy was basically our machine builder, and he's the reason I know anything about machines. But he told me about JoJo, and I was like, oh yeah, I'll go up there. And I walked into 10,000 Waves, and I was like, this is it. Like it's the same thing, same feeling, same just like, oh my god, these guys are killing it. And talk about like just artistry, like they paint endlessly, like everything's on the walls, everything's on the ceilings, they're giant posters. But he tattooed me, and then one day I was like hanging out and driving, and I was like, I think I'm gonna have him do my back piece. Like that was the right person for it, and I'm so glad I did. Same kind of energy of just he gets what tattooing is, and he lives it, and he's also like he's got the right character of a person. He treats his clients the right way, respectful family man. Like he's got all the things that I emulate in life. And I think that's what I really look for in tattooers is not. I was never drawn to the like high money tattoo life thing of like running and doing partying. I just wanted to be I didn't care for the rock star life. I wanted the life of like, oh, I'm happy and I'm healthy and I have a good community of people around me and I have a great business and my clients enjoy being around me. My clients are some of my clients are friends, but most of them at least are respectful people who do respectful things in the world. And it's been inspiring to meet those people and continue to learn and ask them questions. Who else stands out? I'm trying to think who's another like go to. I look at a lot of Philip Liu content, but not for his artistry. Really I don't care to be a great Philip Liu, like to that degree where he's just, he's like tattoo god world for most people. But I like his mindset around tattooing. I like that he is basically still at the beginning and still learning and has he just the way he speaks about tattooing is that he's still grateful for the people, and that's the main thing. It's like we serve people. We're a service industry. We're not anything without them. And if you forget that, it's very easy to like go off the deep end and like think that you're someone. Like you're nothing without them. Like especially I love working in a walk-in shop for that reason. My livelihood is dependent on people coming in this shop. So I take that very seriously. Like if they enter into this building, it's like, welcome to our home. How can I help you? How can I actually give you what you need? Because the worst thing that could happen is that they leave and they're like, I hated it there, or they didn't make me feel welcome, or they talked down to me, or they treated me in any way that wasn't of the standard that the people who have worked here before me have set, which is another thing about legacy. It's like this shop has served military and people for years. I don't want to dampen that in any way. I would like to add to that.
Yeah, yeah. Well, plus people, they want a place where they can go to get it. They want, they want the place that it matters to them. It matters to them as much as it matters to us as tattooers. And just to have that. I mean, even if I was a client, when I see places that have been around forever shut down, I'm just like, no.
Yeah, you're like, oh man, that was like a symbol of something.
Yeah, yeah, and I'm sure a lot of people really feel that way about this place, and you did too. But being a tattoo nerd too kind of puts you in a little bit of a different category than just like your average consumer. Yeah. And of course, not everyone values it. It's the spectrum, and you're definitely on the edge where it's more like where it's more important to really be studious. I mean, it shocked me when you told me you weren't academically inclined with how studious I saw you were with the notebooks and everything. But it makes sense. It makes sense, especially when you have the quest. When the quest is there and you're like, it's so crystal clear, you're like, I'm making this work.
I just want to add the other person I'd add, I don't know how I didn't think of, is Gil. Gil is definitely my most magical mentor. Like being around him and learning from him and seeing his view on life. Like one of the coolest things about Gil and I is that we share a birthday. Like I've always loved that because because we went through the pandemic and like while he was here, like we constantly were just like, what are we gonna do for our birthdays? Like it's cool to have someone who you really can connect with and be like, this is the coolest thing ever. And he passed on to me, I feel, is that he helped me understand that tattooing is not it's not yours to keep, it's yours to add to and then pass on, basically. Like you're almost like given, like you're holding a box that you will one day pass down. And so while you have it, put nice things in that box and add, beautify the box. Make sure that the next person who gets it also has something golden.
Wow, that's profound.
Gil's the man.
That's mind blowing. Like that's a really good way to look at it. Wow, I'm not trying to oversell it. I am like blown away. Like that made my when you get information and your whole brain kind of like washes over your whole brain. You're like, hang on, wait a minute. I need like a minute to like let that kind of sink in.
For sure.
That was great. That was really good. That's such an amazing way to think about it, and what a blessing it is really I know you're very thankful to have that. I've heard so many stories. I've always missed him.
Gil?
Yeah,
He's like that.
I've always missed him. He's like that. That adds to the mystery.
Right? It's true. I know people are like, I've come here for years and I've never seen him. And it's like, I know. It's like that. He's here and there.
Yeah, I see a picture and I'm be like, is that him? I'll be like, I question it. It's like Bigfoot, practically.
Yes.
It's like tattoo
And
Bigfoot.
so what's crazy about Gil is he only takes pictures half face. If you do you know about that?
Oh no.
All his pictures. If you find any picture of him on Instagram, he only takes pictures of half of his face. So he is this like unseen creature that's like
Wow.
you've got to capture in the wild. It's it's awesome. It's really cool. And like you said, when you travel, you talk to people, and they're like, "Oh my God, I've been to San Diego. I know that shop. Gil's the owner, right?" And you're like, "Yeah." They're like, "I've never met him."
Yeah. That's
He's a great
crazy.
guy.
If I ever get him to sit down, I'll probably just film a side of his.
See, you should. It would
Just
you would
like
love it.
just one angle.
Yep.
Just the side of his face. A really strong juxtaposition, like right angle.
Yep.
Like.
Yep. Or just like hard light, so it's just like shadow this side. It's
Oh God.
he loves it.
Like Scarface.
Yeah.
Like,
And he's the sweetest guy too. He's a Disney fan. He's all about magic, and he's all about theming. Like the shop is his design a lot of the time. It's set up in a way we used to when we designed it during the pandemic, and we redesigned it because we kept trying to change the inside look. He basically pulls a lot from the way Disney designs their parks and uses that to like consider the flow of things and the way things are set up. Yeah, he's really studious about it. Like he cares that your experience in the shop is that of what you would get from a park or going into a world, which I've always loved because my first few days here, even still, I mean, if I'm here alone and I walk through this place, it's like whoa, what is this place? What is all this stuff? There's energy in the paintings. There's energy in the walls. The lights, the lanterns are like from the 1950s. There's tiki elements all throughout. We recently updated the lighting to make it brighter, but when I started, it was very dark, kind of like a tiki lounge, very dungeony. It's all intentional in a way. It's like he's considering all the elements of how are people going to experience the shop.
yeah, now you pointed it out, it makes a lot of sense. Especially with there's a lot of symmetry going on and organic flow. That's amazing. Well, I mean, I guess I know it's very easy to see what it means to him, but what does this shop mean to you?
It means the most to me. I take it too personally sometimes.
Really?
Yeah, I love it here. I take it too personally, and I know it because I blow up sometimes when people don't. So that was my first like key. We are fortunate. We are extremely fortunate to be here. Everyone who works here. Fortunate to have met Gil and to be a part of it, for him to take us in, and then fortunate to have the opportunity to be in a building that has so much history, so much rich culture. If you actually love the history of tattooing, you sit in like the mecca of it. Like, there's not many shops that existed for 75 years. It's not easy to carry that torch either. That's a lot of responsibility. You kind of, like we were talking about having bad days. Like, you can have bad days, but you need to leave it at the door. Like, it's a real character check to work here, and like you've gotta be that kind of person to be like, man, I have to show up a certain way every day as best I possibly can. And it's challenging, but it's also a home. And if you view it as a home and like really think of like what is a home, it's what you put into it. It's the amount of effort and love you give to it, and it gives you that love back. Like, on a bad day here, like not a bad day, on a day where no one walks in and it's just us, we still have fun here because we curate something going on, no matter whether it's just like we do a lot of weird drawing challenges up there where it's like 1 minute on the clock, draw something ridiculous.
Oh, I love those.
We'll just be in here alone laughing. Like, it's one of those shops where I feel fortunate to just come and sit in here some days. I don't have to tattoo. I'd like to tattoo. Please come get tattoos. But it's like, if I don't, it was still a good day because I came to the shop. And like today's my day off, but this is it's already a great day. I've already had so much fun sitting up there telling stories and hearing about just things I never knew. We were talking about Lyle Tuttle, and Dave will tell you about, he comes from Henry Goldfield in San Francisco. So there's so many stories I've never heard, and I'm like, oh, this is it. This is all this is about.
Yeah, I love those stories. That's one of the reasons that really motivated me to start this because I wish there's so many. You know, you ever hear stories of like, damn, I wish I could like just encapsulate it and like show people. I mean, I strongly have that in me. Do you have any stories that? Do you have a story that you really? You don't have to.
My
I know
favorite
you.
story is just how I got here. Like I was at a tattoo convention. It was super slow, and I was hanging out with Amy Shandick, and apparently Gil and her have always been booth mates. I never knew. And I had gone to like 2 or 3 conventions and never seen Gil. That's how
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Gil,
Yeah.
right? Even at a
Yeah.
convention, he's not
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
He sat right next to her. And finally at the Minnesota convention, I think it's that convention. It was super slow, super dead. We were doing nothing. And here's this guy, this in a tiki, outfit, just sitting there. And I was like, hey man, what are you doing? He's like, I got nothing. And I was like, oh wow, okay. I'm not doing anything. Can I get a tattoo? And he's like, yeah, sure. And I think I either let him know that like, hey, I just drove here. I don't have much money. Like, how much is a tattoo? And he's like, go buy me chicken tenders. And I was
Wow.
like, what?
Cool.
And he's like, yeah, go buy me some chicken tenders and some fries. So I got him chicken tenders, and we did that tattoo, the tiki, like nervous tiki guy. And he sat me in the chair like this. So, and Gil's notorious for like not talking during his tattoos. So like I tried to talk to him about stuff and like life, and he was just like, yeah, just do this. Like just went focused mostly on the tattoo. But when it was done, because there was nothing going on, we just hung out and we just talked and chatted and really got to know him. And I didn't see him again for another year. Like that's kind of how I met Gil. And actually, that's not true. Another year later, we were at another convention and I showed up again. And I was their runner for stencils. Like I saw him and I was like, hey man, I'm just here. Like, can I help? And he was like, yeah, you can get us food and stencils. And that was a busy convention. I remember everyone just being like squished together. It was in the middle of winter. And like, I was just like squishing through bodies to get to the stencil station. And at the end of that convention, they took me out to one of their dinners, like the tattoo dinners at the end, and I just hung out with other tattooers.
Oh
and,
yeah, I
like,
love
this
those.
is cool. Like I like this. And then again, back to Kansas, I went alone, just like that was dope. Hope I get to do that again someday.
You never forget it. You never forget, especially your first tattoo dinner with all the.
Okay, all these people like, who are you? And like, oh man, look at that guy. And I didn't have tons of tattoos, so I was just in this world, just sitting amongst what looked like some of the coolest people in the world,
Yeah, when you see, even if you don't know most of them or you know some of them, but seeing them like interacting, like it's just like a whole new, because you see the pictures, you see the poses, you see the power poses, you see the footage if you watch any of the shows or anything, but then you see the normalcy and you're just like, or this when they're breaking bread and just really talking shop, like really talking shop.
Yeah, amongst each other, it's like it's like Godfather scenes. It's just like, whoa, what is this? What are they doing? And then everyone. The crazy thing about conventions is everyone just goes back to their world. Like you only meet in this interesting space. You share a meal and then disperse, and you're back into your natural setting.
Yeah. It's almost like a dream sometimes.
And they're fast, Like conventions are 3 days, but those 3 days are lightning. It's just like you're working and you're sleeping and you're eating and you're working, and that's it.
Oh, I know.
And then you wake up on Monday on the plane and you're like, the hell did I just do?
I don't even know how some of them party through it.
Dude,
I'm like, dude, I'm not. I can't like party and work. Like I can't like drink and work. I'm like, they're separate things for me, but like, and then I can't. It's really hard for me to be hungover. I've done it for many years, but getting tore up as I'm older. I'm 38 now. It's like it's hard. It's like really hard. Now I have the skill now, but now I don't have the fortitude
to stick with it. Yeah, the next day
to get completely, schlockerknockered, and then come in the next day and just pump it out like it ain't no business.
I went to bed at 2. I'm up at 7. It's fine. Like no.
Oh my God. Man. Yeah.
No, I remember watching people do that, and I was like, that's a different kind of person. I'm just not that person. I don't have it in me.
Yeah.
I'm more of the like, even the first, well, we did Philly this year. It was me, Gil, Amy, and Phil, and Pappy and Angel. We all did Philly, and it was really good. But it was like up at 7 or 8, eat, go to the convention from 9 or 10 whenever they open till 11, and then you eat like tuna and you go to bed. And that was it. And it was like, oh man, this is crazy. It was really fun. But that was the last convention I did for, and I think it's gonna be for a little bit. I need like a change. I didn't realize how tough they are. Going to them as an observer and just hanging out, completely different than working them.
Yeah, it's totally. I was about to ask how you felt about them.
Yeah, they are really good for experience. And Philly, unfortunately, not unfortunately, we were just so busy. Like it was the busiest I've ever been at a convention, and I was so busy that I didn't really get to explore and meet people. And it's one of those conventions that's huge. So there are tons of other tattooers there. It'd be nice to have met someone. We met our booth mates and the people sitting across from us, and some of the people from Philadelphia Eddie's shop, because we were in Historic Row, which is just where all the historic shops were. We met Ronnie De La Quila, and just like a lot of old timers. Was really, for that I'm grateful. But there's so many tattooers I never got to see. I didn't even know they were there because it was just so busy. And honestly, that's kind of it's like a double edged sword. It's like if we weren't busy, I would have met a lot of people, but I would have probably been like, oh man, but we didn't make any money. So it's I'm glad it was busy. I just, if I go to conventions, I try to at least meet people because I feel like that's a big part of it. It's like seeing other styles. There was a guy doing Tabori there that I got to like kind of peek in on for a moment. That was cool. It's just there's so much happening at a convention. I always try to have one day where I walk around in the morning. It's like a circus, and you may walk down an aisle and be like, "What was that?" Like, I didn't even know that people did that, you know. And there was a lot of that. There was a lot of like styles I'd never seen, and I need that sometimes because if you're in a shop all the time, you don't get to really explore. The internet's great, but they don't show you the un. Yeah, it's not right in your face. It's not like, oh, he's doing that. Oh, look how he's doing that. Like, he's whipping backwards. Like, who does that? Why are you doing that? Like, oh, he's using a needle grouping in a way I've never used it. Like, oh, that's something to think about. It kind of changes you, and you look through other portfolios and you see the way people maybe even set up their portfolios, the way they set up their booth. It's all an interesting, like, it's a culture shock for 3 days. And then you come back and you sit in your booth and you're like, oh man, I want to try something like that, or I don't know, I saw a light there that I'd never seen before, or it's so much going on.
Well, the collaboration aspect, I feel like it's the zip code concept. I don't know if you ever heard of that.
What's that?
But a lot of success can be predicted by your zip code. It's not really race, gender, orientate, religious or sexual orientation. It's like zip code. So like when you came from Kansas, right? And you came to San Diego, you changed your zip code. And it was just, and then suddenly you were next to so much more. And you had so much more competition, you had so much more next to you, you had so much more. So I feel like it's pretty much like taking all the zip codes and putting them in one spot for like a weekend. And now,
I like that. I never heard that, but I absolutely agree. Yeah.
sure, yeah. So I feel so much the same way. Whenever I leave a convention, I'm always like, I got all this new stuff that I learned. And I think seeing it online, it's just so separated. But when you show up and they become like your competition / collaborator, and they're next to you, and you want to show up at a convention looking strong, and then someone shows up looking stronger, and you're like, God, that must be what Ed Hardy and Jack Rudy and the Tattoo Nation, when they showed up with black and gray, and Ed Hardy was like, what the fuck?
Right. It probably just blew them out the water. They're like, I didn't even know you could do stuff like that.
Exactly.
Like, and that it fuels you. If you love this thing, it instantly sets you on fire. You're like, I have to figure that out. I have to know how to do that. No matter what it is, it's like, I gotta figure it out.
Yeah, and you can ask them.
That too. That's something people don't. That was something that at this last convention we all paid attention to. that is very different. Conventions used to have a collaborative effort. There was like a community involved. The Philly one felt very separate. Everyone was in their own bubble in a weird way. Like, of course, I think because we were on Historic Row, there was a connectiveness there because people have history. But I felt like there was a sameness. So when I walked around, the one thing I noticed is that a lot of the banners looked the same because it looked like they were printed from the same company and the same font logo. Like it was wild. It was like that's that guy's logo, but with a different name. Like absolutely, there was no creativity involved, and it's like that's that unfortunate push of almost like a corporate style tattooing. I don't like that, but
Yeah, I'm not. That's not my.
yeah, I want people to come there and paint their own banners. And I mean, I haven't done the Salt Lake one, but I hear the Salt Lake one is that it is a tattooer show where there's people coming in, they paint most of their stuff, they collaborate, they talk, they have a community effort. And I like more of those kind of tattoo conventions if I can.
I'm not even really a fan of rotaries, um, even though I use them because they're all the same. And I'm not much of a car guy, but I like a classic car. I like how the coils are they're kind of like classic cars. They're all very different. And I like when showing up to a convention, that's one of the big draws for me. Well, one thing I want to ask you, I personally haven't been to a convention in a long time. Not since the pandemic.
I was gonna say, yeah. When was your last one?
And I I think I went to the Vegas one, but that was just like that turned into a bad. Me and the guy went. It's not a good story.
Okay.
It's not a good story, and I certainly didn't handle it well. But I don't think either of us did. And I probably wouldn't do that one again. I don't really like those ones. They're like really celebrity. It's Mario Barth is a cool guy. I don't want to talk ill of him. I met him and I was like, he seems like a really nice gentleman. But the show just really wasn't my speed. But aside from that, I'm used to going to like the traditional crew of tattooers, and I haven't been since the pandemic. And what is your hearing your take on it is interesting because especially one of my big gripes about conventions coming up, I used to do the Seattle one a lot, and I used to do the Salt Lake one a lot. And one of the things I didn't really like about them is it felt like they were really adding more tattooers, more booths beyond what the traffic could maintain or what they promoted or however, beyond what was available to be tattooed. Right. Granted, that could just be me. I could just get better. But also, I just felt like there was just like so many people doing nothing. And there was just so many booths, like so many more booths. And I want the convention to be good, but it also needs to be sustainable.
I've never been to. So what I'll say about that is, yes, there are types of conventions that are. I feel like they oversell on booths and they get anyone in. I've pulled away from those type of conventions recently, and I think that's what Philly was for me. Philly was like a good eye opener to realize like this is not what I thought conventions were, and this is not the kind of style of convention I'm looking for anymore. I like doing it with my friends because that's like it's where I started, and so I have that like nostalgic approach to like those kind of conventions. But in the future, I'd really like to do the smaller, more private and more like invite only conventions. Not because they're elitist, but because they attract a certain type of crowd and a certain type of person who has the same mindset around tattooing. And when you put a small, like you said, zip codes, if you take a strong zip code of people and you put them in a room and you go, hey, this is a limited amount of people, it does something. Like, Phil is the only example of recently, like he went to a convention, I think he did the Austin one, or he did a Texas one, and his style transformed immediately when he got back because he saw something that just kicked him into gear. And I feel like that's the benefit of going to those kind of conventions. You're busy enough, there's enough people to the artists, but you're also still free to walk around and talk and learn and ask questions from other community members and feel like, oh, okay, we're getting something out of this, not just we're not just financially trying to make back the money we made to come out here, but we're also getting knowledge and we're going back stronger for our clientele and for ourselves. So I'm sorry, I forgot your question. But
Just
how do
how
I
are
view them?
yeah? I mean, how are conventions these days?
The ones I've gone to have had this element of overselling, but I've gone to a certain style of convention, so I don't know. Like I've gone to conventions that are bigger and allow anyone in, not just licensed professional tattoo artists, but also people who are out of their house and to just have a
Oh
portfolio.
yeah,
So that's something to be at because you see, it's weird. It's weird to be in those because you're like, I worked really hard to get here, and this person is sitting next to me, and I can tell I can tell that they're just getting started or they just haven't figured it out yet, and that's a weird feeling because the clients don't know the difference. That's something that I pick up. Yeah, a seasoned client will know. They'll come over and look at a portfolio and be like, eh. But I've definitely seen people walk away from conventions and be like, look, I just got this, and you're looking at it like, who did that? Like, who here did that? Who allowed that to be done? That's not okay.
yeah. You get some silly ones sometimes. How do you feel about I mean, how do you feel about that? Like, you know, one of the things I noticed, one of the things I started is because a lot of people, not that I'm against it, but it's not the path I personally would have wanted to take. You know, there's an argument to be made for everything, but how do you feel about the people who teach themselves?
I am.
The Amazon tattooers.
Forgot who's another. What's his name? I think Mike Dorsey. I think it's Mike Dorsey is a self-taught tattooer. I'm pretty sure. It's either him or it's someone else. I think it's Mike Dorsey. I think he's in an interview and he talks about that. And when I heard that, it switched everything for me because I was like, okay, well then this is I can't live in the idea that the apprenticeship's the only way. Obviously, people can get good at a craft because it's a skill without the apprenticeship path. But I will say that you fuck up a lot of people along the way with the self-taught skill. That's the only thing. It's like you by being an apprentice, you cut down on the amount of people you harm in the pursuit of this thing. And almost like the Hippocratic oath of like do no harm. It's like if you really want to do this, you'd want to do it in a way that didn't scar people or give them bad tattoos. You'd want to be able to give them the best quality work you could do. I think if you look at it from that perspective, I also understand that some people get into tattooing as a financial lifestyle upgrade. Like they're like, I need the money. This thing is quick money. I will do tattooing. And their neighborhood and their socioeconomic like background provides the clients for that. I forgot who I listened to that talks about like they talk about coming after it's a European tattooer, but he came over to the States and his biggest shock was that in the States there's a bracket for every range of tattooing. Like if you do tattoos for $60, you have your clientele, and if you do tattoos for $100, you have your clientele. All the way, you know, there's always someone who's willing to pay a little more and a little less for those tattoos. So in a way, they kind of deserve the tattoo they get. But I don't look down on people who are self-taught because there are just great self-taught artists, you know, and they figured it out and hopefully they love tattooing and they want to do it well and they just pursued it that way. There's no one way to get into tattooing. I don't have a respect for the people who continually do poor work. Like if you're self-taught and your work's not good and you continually do that with no desire to get better because you're like, well, it's easy money. That's not something I can stand behind. But if you are self-taught and you're great, like I don't know what else to say to that. It's like you did it. You figured it out. You got yourself there. Maybe that wasn't my path, but that's obviously was yours, and that's nice. Like,
Yeah. Well, I mean, even well, this is about you, but not about me. But yeah, I would even consider myself in that self-taught category because I feel like I didn't get enough out of my apprenticeship before I left it, and it was kind of like a separate. I'm like a half and half.
okay.
I'm like breve.
Yeah.
and but so I do kind of see both sides because I wanted it so bad. I wasn't even gonna let that stop me. But I also knew I couldn't do it on my own. So there was like, once I got enough to get enough respect from people to help me. But the interesting part about tattooing too is that as far as like my connection with Chad and connection with this shop, and like most of the lineages that are associated around this are part of a specific lineage. I said that word twice, but they're part of like a specific group. There are other lineages that are starting to become new, and there's street shops. You know, I say there's street shops, and then there's traditional shops, and then now they're actually developing into more shops now, where you know, because like there's different eras. There's the biker era, there's the skater era, and then now we got our Post Malone era right now. I call them Post Malone tattooers. And no hate against Post Malone.
No, he don't post it. No, he don't post you.
It's just with this new era, now you have spa style tattoo places, therapy style tattoo places because everyone's into therapy, and
That's true.
that's the thing these days. Now mindfulness is like a big spirituality is coming back in vogue.
And so it's funny. I'm glad you say that because those sections of tattooing, I think it fits that same idea about like the same way there are different financial brackets, there are different niches of tattooing that people need. And I would say need because like the therapy and the spiritual side, I've only recently, like you were saying, you like to explore. I've only recently kind of explored into those sides because I've had people in my community. I do a lot of yoga and stuff, so I'm like
Sure.
in those communities, and they're like, "Do you do the sacred tattooing where like we do like some kind of meditation first, and then and it's like." That's not me, but I get why that exists. Like, that makes sense. There's someone out there who wants that form of tattooing. Someone's gonna provide it, and someone likes providing it. I don't see why they shouldn't exist, but it's not me. It's just not my style. And I try to, the main thing I try not to do is I don't want to be a gatekeeper to the way tattooing has to be, because I don't think there's a right way to do it. I just think there are better, I think there are ways that the idea is that we're in service to people. So if this is the way these people get tattooed, that's their way. Like,
Yeah, the most important person is the client,
Right.
and in all of tattooing and tattoo process is the people who get the tattoos.
it's for them. I've seen tattooers who try to regulate the way people get tattooed. Like, oh no, you have to pick flash, or you have to wear it here because this is where it's supposed to be worn traditionally, or like it needs to be done this way in this style or with this line weight. It's like all that may be true, but at the end of the day, this is a person who has made a decision that they want to wear it the way they want to wear it, and you can either honor it or pass it on to the next person who wants to honor it because that's what they do. Like, I think of the difference between like someone who does hard, big traditional tattoos and then someone who does fine line. Like if someone comes in and they want a fine line tattoo and you don't do that, steering them in the direction of a fine line artist isn't going to change tattooing. It's not going to ruin it. It's not going to bring it down. You're actually helping it because you've now opened up another avenue to a person that would have otherwise just walked away.
Yeah, or not gotten it at all, or gotten it in a way that they didn't want. Yeah, because I think there's room for definitely different and new styles to develop based on demand.
Based on demand. But the hard side of that is we also still have to be experts in understanding the way tattoos heal and the way they grow, because it isn't paper. It's skin medium. So your integrity in skin medium needs to make sense. You need to be a tattooer with integrity who understands, like, at least tell people the truth behind, like, hey, this is how this will heal. I promise you. I know it. I've seen it. Here's a good example of what it'll look like. If you still want it, let's do it, because you're at least fully aware of what you're getting yourself into. I'm not going to sell you a lie.
Oh, I'm completely on board with that. Yeah, because you don't want to sell them. I tell people two things. The one thing I tell everybody is I want you walking out happy with what you got. Like as you're stepping out the door, the goal is that I was like, that was great. I'm happy, and because I know how it feels when you walk out of the door and you're like, fuck, that's not what I wanted. That's not how I wanted it to go. The artist was not as good as I thought they were. I've had tattoos. You're not tattooed unless you got a bad tattoo, but but I also want them to not be upset that they got this tattoo in 5 years later, that their tattoo's all fucked up. It's all blurred together and whatnot. So I want them to the longevity is important, and sometimes you see sometimes they don't care.
Sometimes they don't care.
They're like, nope, just give it to me now. That's what I want. I'll cover it up later.
Yes.
And it's like, okay.
Yes, and I've heard that, and it's like, but then when they do that as a tattooer, then I just fall back on myself, and I'm like, do I feel okay doing this? Because then they've given me the power. It's like, all right, you're okay with it being bad. You're okay with it not healing well or just looking crappy or it being a cover up. And then I just have to weigh out if I can handle sleeping on that night. Like, can I really live with this one? Sometimes I can, sometimes I can't. It depends on what the tattoo is.
Well, I really appreciate you taking the time. I think we got a lot here. I mean, let me ask you this. What's the future hold for you or for the shop? However you want to answer that. Very freeform if you haven't figured that out. I like just letting you take the mic.
I have to start something new, I think, is where I'm at. I have to start, like, I feel like I'm at a point where I need to dip my toe in an unknown territory. I'm kind of always been like that. The same way you were saying you like to switch things up to make it not so much boring, but you challenge yourself. I'm very much like that.
Making sure you don't get too comfortable.
Exactly. I came here from, my mom was in the military, so in a military family, you move around almost every 2 to 3 years, and I have that itch. This is the second longest place I've ever lived, so I'm at 5 years now here, or almost 5, and it's constantly on the back of my mind. I'm like, I gotta go somewhere, and I thought I could get that through conventions and traveling, but it doesn't give the same itch. I need relocation, and it makes me grow because I get to be around an environment I've never been in. Everything switches. It's just like that kind of like quick boom of like being in a new place, trying new things, switching up the way I do my tattoos, getting tattoos that I wouldn't normally get, like in a world that I wouldn't normally try, or it fuels my desire to keep growing, and I think I'm cresting on that moment. So,
are you gonna be okay walking away from this place, even if it's temporary or permanently or temporarily?
I think it would definitely be temporarily, but I would be okay with it because I think the people who are here all have the same heart and would carry on the torch in the same way, and that's an important thing for me. Is that I don't think I'd be able to walk away if I felt that it was gonna go to shit without me. But I think this is definitely in the right hands. It's Gil instilled something in me that I feel has been instilled and passed on and continues to be a lively part of all of us. So I think we all have it. We all respect where we live and where we work, and we want it to be the best as it can be. And so, definitely temporary, but it would be nice to just see the world from a different view and bring that knowledge back at a later time.
I see that, yeah. Almost like a extended pilgrimage.
Yeah, that is kind of how, I mean, yes, that is exactly how I see it. It's like, I just like starting anew, and I like putting myself in positions that I've never been in, whether it's a different country or a different place. It just has this this pull that I think that's what life is for me. Is to go and try and be in new places and to get uncomfortable and get shaken up and then resettle again and just keep doing that.
If do you have a place in mind, or or an action to take in mind?
I do. I do.
You don't have to share if you're,
Yeah,
you're
I
still
have a place
working.
in mind. I
If
think,
you're still working on it.
yeah, I have a place in mind. I just think it's the next level of my tattoo journey. It's like, I'll probably always be with tattooing, but there are things in tattooing that you can't, like, you can control certain aspects. The artistry, I have a lot of control over. The business side, I don't. And so I would like to get better at the business side and figuring out what this thing is that I'm building, because I feel like right now it's kind of like a train that's on a track, and I'm not really the conductor. I'm just one of the people in one of the cars back, and it's going. It's cool, but it's like, where are we going? So, yeah.
Well, cool. I mean, I guess, do you have anything you want to close out with? I'll link all your socials and stuff. I mean, you can do that if you
No,
want.
that's fine.
Or just any parting thoughts.
I'm glad you're doing this. I
Oh,
I was kind of
thank you.
nervous about it when you called, but I think the opportunity to talk about our shop and to talk about to contribute to tattooing, that was something that I talked to Jojo about when he did my back, which is, how do you give back to tattooing? Like, what does that even mean? And he, I guess what I got from him was that you do your best in continuing what you think tattooing is, basically. So if you believe that tattooing is all the things we've talked about, then you talk about that and you spread that around and you let people know. We are truly one of the few industries that are like held together by words and by stories. You can't, even now with all the access to YouTube and the internet, you really can't get it online. It's cool.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah. I say this is the last frontier. This
Yeah.
is what the last real job where you apprentice for real.
Yeah, you have to be in it, and I never understood that until I went through it, and then I got it, and I was like, oh, you have to be invested in it. You have to be a part of it. You have to live it, breathe it. You got to talk to people. You got to stand out front and deal with the things that come with street shops. Like, there's a whole world that you can't understand through a phone lens.
Yeah,
Yeah,
this
it's
is
a
the
lived
Wild
experience.
West.
It
This
is
is
the
the
Wild West.
last frontier.
The last frontier. So yeah, I hope that I hope that it inspires people to actually follow the apprenticeship path, but also to take tattooing pretty seriously. It's a privilege. We're fortunate.
I agree too. I agree. I want to see. Just speaking personally, I want to see. There's just this beauty to it, and it's. I know no knock on anybody. I'm happy everyone is so invested in creating in benefiting their craft and really developing it. But I just have a tech savvy muscle, and I know not a lot of other people do that. I mean, they're artists,
Yeah.
and and they're in their craft. That the maximum. I've always just wanted to really do it and do something with YouTube, but do something where I can. I have that dog in me where, like, the first time I came here, I was like, I should be recording all of this and sharing it with everybody. But when you were saying, when you were talking to JoJo about giving back to tattooing, I know when I worked for this guy Defire, and he said, I try not to think what tattooing can do for me, but what I can do for tattooing. And I never forgot that. He was just a thing he just said.
Yeah.
And because that's why he built machines, and it would help him. But that's I just never forgot. There's some things that people just say.
It sticks with you.
Yeah,
It lives with
yeah.
you forever, for the rest of your
It's
life.
just like floating around, and it sticks on there, and it's just never. You're just like, whoa, that's so good. And they don't even know. They're just walking away.
Yeah. I will leave. So, because you said that, the only thing I can think of is I'll leave with Gil's favorite thing, which is that it's the life we choose. And it's a very simple line, but it applies every day. It's the life we choose. And I think if you think about that on your best days, you can say that at the end of the day and you walk out and you're smiling. And on your worst days, you also have the same thing. It's the life we choose.
Wow, so true.
It's beautiful. It's
Yeah,
I don't think everyone gets to choose their lifestyle, but tattooers do. And that's awesome.
I love it, dude. That's great.
Cool.
Cool. Well,
Thank you, man.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
Thank
that
you
was fun.
for participating.
Thank you for coming down. This was really fun.